Hey, what's up, guys? Clint here. And in this video, we're going to create a travel booking website in HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. And it's basically similar to like Airbnb or something, okay? So if you watch my channel, you know that most of my videos are created around React.js. However, I wanted to put this out there and really focus on the CSS we're going to use, such as Flexbox and Grid. Because if you understand these basics, I know you can start earning money as a front-end web developer, because that's what I did, okay? So when I first started as a web developer, and before I learned any JavaScript libraries such as React, I started freelancing using HTML and CSS only. And I was able to make like 15 to 30 bucks an hour while still learning the basics, okay? So I can discuss how I did this in a future video, but let's just take a look at what we're going to be building today here, okay? And like I said, this is just two files here, index file and a style file here. No frameworks, no CSS frameworks like Tailwind or anything like that. So let me show you what we're going to be building here. We have a nice nav bar here at the top. I have a little filter section. And this is our main section right here. We're going to have some smooth scrolling. If you click on a link, we scroll down to the bottom of the page here, and then we can scroll up to the top here. And everything is fully responsive. So if we shrink this down, you can see now our main section is a 4-column layout. Then as we pass our breakpoint, we're going to hit, our nav bar popped open. We're going to hit a 3-column layout here. Then as we drop down once more, we're going to hit a 2-column layout just like that. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do all this from scratch. And like I said, if you know how to code, just understand the basics of CSS, such as the layout, at least, such as Flex and Grid, then I believe that you can start earning money as a front-end web developer. And that's what I started my channel for. I just wanted to help other guys and girls learn to code and be able to start earning money as a web developer. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how I built this from scratch, okay? So let's go ahead and shrink that down, and in here, I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're going to be using Font Awesome. I'll show you how to install that and configure it. It's super easy. Actually, you don't even need to install it. We're just going to use the CDN. So here I am in VS Code. So I just have a blank folder in here called Air Travel. And what I want to do is create two files. Okay, so I'm going to create an index.html file. And then also we're going to create a style.css file. So what I'm going to be using today, or Emmet comes by default with VS Code. So if you go ahead and just type the exclamation mark, you can see the Emmet abbreviation, and what that's going to do is just generate a boilerplate code for us right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this title. We can call it Air Travel, whatever you'd like to call it. And we're going to attach our style sheet. And how we're going to do that, we just put that in our head here, just below our title is fine. So link, and then we can go down to CSS, and it actually by default just calls it style. So that's all we need to do right there. Now, for our styles, what I want to do, I'm just going to bring in a couple baseline styles here, and I want to use a Google font here. So how do we use a Google font? Let's go over here, and I'm going to go to fonts.google.com. There we go. And I'm going to be using a font called Poppins. I already have it over here on the right. But basically, you can just search a font and then add it over here. So you can either add it in the HTML as a link, or you can import it in your CSS. And this is what I'm going to do right here. So I'm just going to copy that right there. And we don't need these style tags. You only need to use the style tags if you're putting it in an HTML file. So since it's in our CSS file, that's all we need to do, just like that. And then we can just copy that over, and we can throw this. We'll just put it as a body here. So we can select our body just like that, and then go ahead and just paste that in. Now, a few other baseline styles I want to use. I just want to set, and when I use the star here, the asterisk, we can kind of select all elements here. So what I want to say is box sizing is border box, and I don't want any margin, any default margin like on my H tags or anything like that. So margin I'm going to set to 0, and padding, let's set that to 0 as well. And a few other things here are list items. I'm going to set that to list. Style type of none, because we don't want them to be anything underlined or any bullet points or anything like that. So we're going to do the same for our A tags. I'm going to say text decoration none, and I'm just going to set this color here to like a light or a dark gray there, just like that. Okay, so that's all we need to do for now in our CSS file. And I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Hopefully that helps you guys right here, okay? And I'm using a really cool extension here, our plugin called Live Server. So you go in here and just type in Live Server. I think this is it right here at the top. So basically, it just lets you open up a server on your HTML file. So that's all you need to do. You do have to have the HTML file in a folder, but that's it. That's all you need to do. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop that down. And if I right click, I can just say Open Live Server. And it should open it up right over here. There we go. Close that. And here we are. Here's our HTML file. So let's go ahead and type something in there and see if it's working. So just type hello, just the H1, and there you go. And you can actually see that we're using, this is our Poppins font. If we go ahead and inspect that, you can go ahead and hover over that just like that. You can see Poppins. There we go. So perfect. That's what we want to do. Okay. And so what would I want? I'm going to surround everything in a container. Okay. So for our container, I'm just going to create a div here and we say div just like that. And we can give this a class name of container. Okay. Now, and I'm going to go ahead and label everything too. I like to have some notes just to keep everything nice and neat. Okay. And let's start off with our top bar, and I'm going to open up another one here so we can kind of see what we're doing here. So for our top bar here, it's going to be a div, and we're going to be using Flexbox for our top bar. So I'm going to put another note in here, top bar. And for our top bar, and also instead of saying div and then adding class names, what we can do, a little shortcut, if you type a dot and then you can say top bar or whatever you like, and this is going to add in what you type here as a class name. So go ahead and press enter. You can see it added as a class name right there. So very cool and a nice little trick to save some time here in VS Code. So which our H3, I'm going to say H3 here, and what for our H3, I'm going to say introducing the new air travel, just like that. And then below that, I'm gonna have a P tag that just says learn more, okay? And this is gonna be here, like I said, we're using CSS grid for this top bar. We're gonna be using Flexbox and grid throughout the whole website, so it's gonna be interchangeable here. So let's go ahead and style our container, okay? So container, and for our container, I want the max width to be 1240 pixels, just like that. We're gonna set the margin to auto so it sits everything nice and neat in the middle. And the padding, we're gonna say 0 on the top and bottom, and then 8 pixels on the left and right. And this is just a shorthand property here. That's what we're doing right there. Just kind of best practice for CSS, okay? Now, so for our top bar class, okay? For our top bar class, we want the width to be 100%. Then we want the height, I'm going to set the height to 50 pixels. And we're going to display this as grid. And then grid template columns. We're going to set this to 3 columns, and I want them all to be equal. So a way we can do this, we can just say repeat 3, 1 FR for 3 1 fractions. That means they're going to have 3 columns, and they're all going to be the same size. And then we can say items center. And I'm going to put a little border on the bottom of this, kind of so border bottom, and I just want this to be 1 pixel solid, and it's going to be kind of a light gray color. So if we go ahead and open that up, that's what we want right there. Okay, perfect. Now I'm using an extension here called Pesticide. It's really cool. It kind of shows your HTML elements. It's a must-have if you're a front-end developer, in my opinion. So it helps. I use it all the time. So that's perfect. That's what we want right there. However, we want this to be displayed in this middle column, and in this column over here is where we want the learn more to sit. Okay. So how do we do that? So the intro on H3, we're going to give this a class name, right? So class name. I'm going to call this intro, just like that. And for our intro, let's go ahead and target that. So I'm going to say top bar intro, and what I'm going to say is grid column 2, just like that. And then I want to justify self, because now that it's in the center column, I want it to be centered as well. So justify self, center, just like that. And on this one, we want it to sit on the end of the page. So how we're going to target that, we're going to say top bar, then it is a P tag. We didn't give it a class name. We can just grab it by its element, HTML element. I'm going to say justify self, and I want this to be end. And that should shove it right over there. So as we open this back up, you can see that is perfect. That is what we want right there. And if we look at our Pesticide extension again, you can see this is our container here. It shows our padding, and then the margin is set to auto, so it sits right there in the middle. So that's perfect. That's all we need to do for our top bar. And next, what we're going to do is our, if I show you right here, we're going to do, this is our nav bar right here that I'm selecting. And then this here is going to be our filter, and this is our listing. So let's take care of our nav bar right here. And this will be a lot of fun. We're going to do some JavaScript so we can toggle our mobile menu, and we're going to do some pretty cool CSS in here to put our font awesome icon right there in the middle. So we have a nice layout for our search box. So let's go ahead and do that next. So for our nav bar, I'm going to come down here to our HTML, and what I'm going to say here, put another note, end top bar. And you guys, I was watching a video, another YouTuber, his name's Dorian Codes, I think. Dorian Develops, I believe his name. Bald dude. I don't know him, but he seems like a super cool guy. And in one of his videos, he was talking about over-commenting everything. So something I've been trying to practice here as well. And it just helps keep everything nice and neat. So, by the way, I just saved that. I'm using a prettier extension. So if you go over here to extensions, if you notice when I saved it, everything was formatted. It's an extension called Prettier, just like that. So I highly recommend using that. It helps a lot, kind of keeping everything nice and neat. So in our nav bar, what we're going to do, I'm going to use this shortcut there, .navbar. That's going to give me a div with a class name of navbar, sorry. And then in here, I'm going to create another div, and this is going to be h1. So I'm going to say air travel, just like that. Okay. And then below here, we're going to have another div called search, and this is going to be our middle div there. And inside our search, what we're going to have is a form. And we don't need an action or anything like that, because this is just a front end here. We're not going to be submitting any forms or anything like that. That's not what this tutorial is about. So let's have an input container, okay? And then inside, we're going to have an input type of text. That's right. And then a placeholder, let's say search properties, just like that. Perfect. Now, just below this, and this is what we're doing right here, we're styling this bar in here, okay? So below that, we're gonna have another div, and this is gonna be a button. And inside our button, we're gonna add our Font Awesome icon. So let's go ahead and configure our Font Awesome, okay? So what I want you to do is you need to come in right here. So if you just search Font Awesome CDN, which is where I'm at right there, Font Awesome CDN, this is what you want right here, okay? And go ahead and just select that to copy the link tag. We want this all.min.css, and we're just going to put it up here. You can put it just right below your style sheet. Go ahead and paste it in there. I know it kind of threw off the screen here, so I'll go ahead and save that. But that is what we want right there, you guys. And now that's all we have to do is just put that in our CDN, and now we have access to Font Awesome. So fontawesome.com here is where I want you to go. This is it right here, and we're going to use icons here. So for this particular icon, we'll just say search. And this is what I'm looking for right here. So go ahead and just click on that. And if I click that, it'll copy. It's just an I tag there. And let's go down here, and I'm going to paste it inside our button in here, just like that. And let's look at our property here. Yeah, there we go. So that there you can see that is our icon. So that's all we have to do to import icons from Font Awesome. So very, very easy, and it looks great. So, but we're gonna come back. Actually, it looks terrible. We're gonna come back and style that so it looks nice and pretty. So, but let's finish our form over here. So we're just finished the form there. Then this is our middle search box, and then below that we want to create another one. This is gonna be our menu. Okay, so use our shorthand and create a div with a class name of menu, and then in here we're going to have a UL, and this is how we create shorthands for other elements as well. So I can say UL dot, this is going to be nav menu, just like that, and that gives me a UL with the class name of nav menu. Now in here, we're going to have some list items. So let's create a list item, and these are going to be link tags as well. So and you want to put your A tag inside of your list item. You don't want to have an unordered list element and then have an A tag around your list item. That's a poor practice. You don't want to do that at all. So we're going to have an A tag in here. We want to say nav link, just like that. Okay. And this one's going to say listings, just like that. Perfect. And what we can do is copy this down. So I'm going to select that. And if you're on a Windows, hold the Shift and Alt button. If you're on a Mac, it's going to be the Shift and Option button. But if you hold that and just press the down arrow, it just copies everything down. So how cool is that? You can see it over here on the right. Just saves a bunch of time, so you don't have to type everything out over and over again. So, and in here, where we have, this is going to be our featured. There we go. And this one over here, we're going to say popular, just like that. Okay. And just below our UL here, we're going to put a space there. And we're gonna have one more div with a class name of mobile, just like that. And then what I want for our mobile menu here, I want to get these bars, and we're gonna get those from Font Awesome. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna type in menu, and I'm just gonna grab that one right there. So let's just copy that, and I'm just gonna paste it right there. Boom, there we go. Perfect. That's what we want right there, you guys. Looks good right there. So let's go ahead and style this thing. And that's how I like to do it. I like to code out the HTML and then come back later and hit the styles. So I kind of do like one component at a time, and that's just how I do it there. So I'm gonna go ahead and type a note here, and this is our top bar. And we'll say top bar, and this is just for me so I can kind of keep track of everything a little bit easier. Nav bar, and then let's say nav bar, and if you want to know how I kind of did that with the spacing, all I did was hit the Windows key or the command key and put a slash, and that kind of opens up the asterisk here so you can type in there. So for our nav bar, what we want to do here for our nav bar, it's a nav bar selector, and then the width I want to be 100%, okay, and then the min height, I'll say, min height, we'll say 80 pixels. Then border bottom, I want this to be 1 pixel solid. We're gonna use that same color for our border. Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and put 6 in there, kind of best practice here. And display grid. And like I said, we're going to be using, for grid template columns, I'm going to have 3 columns for the nav bar as well. So we could do the repeat, which is best practice. But what I want to show you, just so you understand, you could also type it out like this, which is also another way to do it. In fact, if you wanted 4 columns, but you wanted that middle column to take up most of the page, 50% of the page, you could do something like that. But I just wanted to show you how that works. But for this here, I'm going to say repeat 3, 1 FR, and then I want the align items to the center. And real quick, but speaking of best practice, if we scroll back up here to our font family, you always want to make sure you have a secondary font in there loaded up, just in case for whatever reason the browser doesn't support it or doesn't import properly. Always make sure you have a secondary font, and that could really save you there. So down here on our nav bar, so we finished up with our nav bar component there. If we open that up, looks good, perfect. Now let's go ahead and get these so they're displaying properly. So I'm going to shrink that down. So after navbar, what I want to target is the H1. So I'm going to say navbar H1, and I'm just going to give this a color. We're going to color the text, and I'm going to use like that kind of red color. So 385 C, FF385C, and that's going to give us that nice kind of like reddish pink color. So next we're going to target our search, which is right there. And this is the search is the whole div, okay, not the form or the input, but search is the div class name. And what I want to say is what I want to say is justify self, because we want to set it just like the one above in the top bar. We want to set it to center. I'm going to say width 100% here. Perfect. And then also let's do our form here. So search form. And this is where it's going to get a little fun and making this look pretty cool, okay? So for our search form, what we're going to do here, we're going to say, what we want to say is display flex, justify content space between, space between, just like that, perfect. And then we want line items to the center, and then we'll say max width of 300 pixels, margin auto width 100%. There we go. And let's give it some padding here. So for the padding, I'm going to use the shorthand properties again. 8 pixels on the top and bottom, 12 pixels on the left and right. We're going to give a border radius of 15 pixels, and that's going to give a nice little curved edge around it, which you can't see right now, but we're about to add the box shadow, and that's where it's going to come in here. So, and really a really cool tool I was using as instead of just playing around with box shadow properties, and it is important to understand, but check out, this is a really cool tool I like to use, especially when I don't want to spend a lot of time. So it's just getcssscan.com. They have a lot of really cool elements in here and pre-styled things, so it's really, really awesome. It's 100% free. But on this, you can just kind of select these box shadows, and I'm going to use this one down here, number 9. So it's going to go and click on that. and it copies it. I'm going to shrink that down, and then check this out. All I'm going to do is just paste it right here, and what it did is just copy the box shadow, right? So it just pre-fills everything for us, and now you can see everything. So that looks really, really awesome. You can save a lot of time, especially if you don't want to mess around with all the box shadow. So next, let's do our input, right? So search input, and we want this input, it's going to stay right there, but we're going to take away the border and stuff like that. Okay, so background, I want to be transparent. There we go. And what we also want to do for the input is a border none. Okay, and we want to say font, well, not that. There we go. And let's give it a font size of one rem. There, it's starting to look better there. Now search, let's say input focus. If I can type here, focus, because whenever we click on this, you get that ugly blue bar from Google Chrome or any other browsers in. So what we can say is focus, the focus selector there, okay? And we can just say outline none. And that should take away that blue bar whenever we click in there. So now it just looks nice and neat like that. So perfect. Everything is looking good there. So next for our icon, let's go and style our icon. So I'm going to say search I for our icons, the I tag there, and then font size, I'm going to say 1 rem. It's going to beef it up just a little bit there. And then let's give it that color, which is going to be, let's see here, FF385C. There it goes. Perfect. Now let's style our button. And you see that little gray background with the border? That's because we surrounded the I tag in a button. So all we can do now is just select that button. So search button, we'll say border none, and we want the background color to be transparent. Boom. There you go. Look at that. That's all I need to do. Doesn't that look clean right there? Awesome, you guys. So let's go on next and take care of this. We want this to display flex, and we want to shove it over here. And of course, we want to hide it on smaller devices and stuff like that. So let's target that next. And that third div in our column, that third column is class name of menu. And we just want to justify self to the end. Perfect. Now slide everything over. Now in here, we're going to select the nav menu. And for our nav menu, no p tags, just a nav menu, we'll display flex, and that should lay everything down. And we'll say nav menu, and then we want the li. We'll say is padding left 1 rem. There we go. And font size, we're going to shrink this down a little bit, 0.8 rem. Boom, there we go. All right, so next what I want to do, I want to make sure I did this search form. Okay, perfect. So we're going to hide this hamburger menu, so don't worry about that. And let's go ahead and do that right now. And we gave that a selector of a class name of mobile right here. Perfect. So for mobile, and this is the div around our icon. So I want to say cursor pointer first of all, because whenever we hover over it, I want to see the pointer. And then, but also want this to display none. And then we'll add it in our media queries. We'll show it, have it display. Okay, so that's what we want right there. And so next, that is perfect right there. We're going to come back and, you know what? Let's go ahead and add all of our media queries. I think that now would be a good time to at least go ahead and start there. So for our media queries, we're going to add this down here. So what we're going to say is at media screen, and there's different ways to do this. You can do max width and min width, but I'm going to do a max width here. So max width of 940 pixels. And we're going to add in 2 breakpoints here. Okay. So for, let's go ahead and do our, we'll do our top bar first, right? So let's grab our top bar, and I want to display, instead of, was right now it's at grid, right? And we have it on the 3 columns, right? But whenever we drop down below 940 pixels, so, and right now you can see at the top right of the screen is 946 pixels. And then I'm going to leave it right there. And whenever we go below 940 pixels, I actually want to display this as flex. And I want to use the justify content space between, so it's shoved to opposite ends of the screen. And of course, align items to the center. So Right now it's the grid, and then watch, once we drop below 940 pixels, you can see it changes. Perfect, just like that. And you guys, it is perfectly okay to interchange grid and flexbox. So there's certain use cases flexbox would be better, and certain use cases where grid will make more sense. So perfect. So let's go ahead, and inside this media query, we'll now work on our nav bar here. So nav bar, and in here, for our nav bar, whenever it's a 3-column layout, however, whenever we get below the 940 pixels, I want to make this a 2-column layout. So we'll just say repeat 2 when far, just like that. And I don't border bottom. I don't want there to be a border when we're on mobile devices. Okay, so perfect. Just like that. And then also for our search, we're going to change a few things. So navbar search, and I'm going to add some space down here. So I don't want that at the very bottom of the screen. Might be hard for you guys to follow along. So in here, I'm going to say width of 100%, and then a padding of 10 pixels on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. And then we're going to use the order property. Okay, so I'm going to say order 3. And what that's going to do is just kind of reorder this in the layout. So right now, if you remember, we had an H1 was in our code was first, and then we had the search form, and then we had the menu. And when I grab this search form and they say order 3, it bumps it to the 3rd column instead of the 2nd one. So that's the order property. Very important to understand. So grid column, I just want this to span 2. There's got to be a space there. Span 2, perfect. So now it is sitting perfectly in the middle, and we actually want this to display the whole width on mobile devices as well. So let's just grab the search and then the form, and let's say max width of 100%. There you go, and that throws it out there. If we notice, whoops, if we can, we'll actually look at this on a mobile device. Perfect. Everything displays perfectly. However, we haven't configured our media queries yet for our drop-down menu. So let's go ahead and take care of that right now. So for our nav menu, let's come down here just a little bit. For our nav menu, we want this position fixed. And I'm going to say left. For now, I'm going to say 0. We're going to come back and change this. Then a background, we're going to say FFF, just like that. Flex direction of column, perfect. Now top, I want it to be 80 pixels because that's the height of our top bar there, so 80 pixels. And say height of 100%, width 100%, and transition duration 0.3. Yes, and we'll say padding top 1 rem. Perfect. So this is kind of how our nav bar is gonna appear. Okay, and we're gonna come back and fix everything, so don't worry about that. Next, let's move on to we're going to add actually an active class, and so this is actually going to be something like this. It's going to be negative 100%. Then whenever we click on our button here, which we're going to come back and add our CSS, everything is going to pop in. So let's go ahead and add that. Let's grab our mobile and just kind of display block. And what this is saying is anything below 940 pixels is going to display block. So that's perfect right there. So what we want to have is an active class, and this is how we're going to toggle our mobile menu. So I'm going to say nav menu.active. And whenever we toggle this class, what we want to set is the left property. Instead of negative 100%, we want to set it a left to 0, just like that. And I'm going to add in one more thing here. Our nav menu li, I'm going to change the sizing on these. So only on smaller devices though for our screen. So 1.2 rem, and then I want a padding of 1 rem, just to give a little bit of space there. Okay, and I want to add one more set of media queries here, and this is going to be a slightly different size here. So instead of 940 pixels, we're going to do 680 pixels as well. So let's do that media screen, and we'll say same thing, max width. Instead of 940, we're going to say 680 pixels, just like that. And there we go. Now in here, let's do our top bar again. So top bar. There we go. So I'll say top bar. And just grabbing the intro. So not everything on here, just like that. We want to have, we're just grabbing the intro and the p tag. So we just hit the comma there. And what we want to say is font size 0.8 rem, just like that. Perfect, perfect. And that shrinks down our intro there, which is the H3, and also our P tag. So perfect. That is what we want right there, you guys. That is looking good. So next, what we want to do is I'm going to drop this down, is our little filter div right here. And it's going to be all these icons that we're going to be using. So, and in this, it makes more sense to use flex so we can justify space between how we're going to do that. So let's kind of go up here, nav bar in there, and let's go over to our HTML, and we're going to start on the sort bar there, so our filter bar. So this is our div menu there, and this is why I like to label things. So nav bar C, and then this is going to be right here, and add my comment here, and nav bar just like that. And what we're going to say here, we'll say sort bar, end sort bar. Perfect. So in our sort bar, what we're going to have, it's going to be a div, and I'm going to call it sort bar. There we go. And in here, we're going to have a bunch of little divs, and this is going to be a div here. No class on this one. And what I want to say here, let's go and grab in fact, I'm just going to copy this over because I don't want to go and find each one again on Font Awesome, but you can use whatever you like. I'm just going to type that in there. It's just our I tag here. It's a little home. And under here, P tag, this one's going to say house, just like that. Now, I'm going to copy in the rest of these things because I don't want to type them all out, but feel free to grab your own or change up the icons or anything like that. But that is what we want right there, you guys. So we have a house, Arctic space, trees, city, camping, beach, games, stuff like that. So, but that's not important here. What we're going to do next is styling the sort bar here. So let's go back into our styles, and we're going to put that right here. Our sort bar. We'll say end sort bar. There we go. So for our sort bar here, like I said, it makes the most sense to display it as flex because I want to use the justify between here. So I'm going to go ahead and sort bar just like that. And I want to display flex. Okay. Now justify content, I want to use space between. There we go. And let's give this thing a padding of 1 rem on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. And then color, I'm going to use that gray color, kind of 5E, 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 just like that. So that is perfect there. That's what we want. And now we got to target this div here. So sort bar, and then we didn't give this div a class name, but this is the only one in there. So all we have to do is say div, and we'll say text align to the center. That should, there you go. And next, what we want to say here is sort bar. We're going to grab the icons, and all we want to say is font size. Font size. We're going to beef them up a little bit. Font size 1.2 rem. There we go. Perfect. And for our P tag, I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. Sort bar P and font size 12 pixels. There we go. Let's go ahead and save that. It gets formatted nice and neat for us. So that is going to finish up our sort bar here. And before we continue, I want to go ahead and configure our mobile menu here, our side drawer menu for mobile devices. So let's go ahead and add in some JavaScript so that's functional. And I'm going to do this in my index.html file. And we're going to do that right here at the bottom. I'm not going to add an external script file or anything like that, since the only JavaScript in this project is the menu. So let's just go ahead and add it down here. You want to add it at the bottom of the body tag, at the very bottom. And the reason we do this is so the CSS and all the HTML gets loaded first, and then the JavaScript lastly. So we're just going to type a script here, just like that. Now inside here, we can just add our JavaScript. And what we want to do is go ahead and define what we're going to be using. We're going to be using the mobile, a nav menu, and some nav links. So I'm going to say it's const here, and then say menu btn, just like that. Then document dot query selector there. And there's different ways you can grab things in JavaScript. Query selector, get element by ID, get element by class name, but we're going to be using query selector here. So we're going to define menu button document dot query selector mobile, just like that. We're going to do it again for nav menu, or you can call it whatever you'd like, but I'm going to call it nav menu. Document dot query selector, and we're going to grab the nav menu. Now we need a function here. And I'm going to be using an arrow function here. It doesn't really matter here, but const. I'm going to call this mobile menu, just like that. And it is an arrow function. Now in here, I'm going to grab this menu.btn. I'm going to say .class list .toggle, and then we're going to toggle the active class, right? And real quick, down in here in our media query for our nav menu, right? So right now our nav menu is off the screen 100% to the left. And whenever we toggle this active, it's going to change it to left, and this is what it's going to look like right here. Well, we need to. I'm going to change this real quick. Let's go into where's our H1? Here it is. So I'm going to say font size. Let's just drop it down a little bit. There we go. Perfect. That's what we want right there, you guys. So back down here, and I'm going to set this back to negative 100. But that's how it's going to look whenever we toggle our menu. So back into our JavaScript here. Menu button .class list toggle the active, and then we also want to do it for our nav menu. So nav menu .class list toggle, and we're going to grab our active. There we go. All right, and that should be all we need to do for now. So what we need to, we need to add that's only JavaScript right there. We do need to add an on click here for our mobile button here, and we're going to add that right here. So on click, we want to run the function that we just created, which is the mobile menu function. And all this is saying, every time we click on this div with the class name mobile, it's going to run this function. So let's go ahead and click, and we're going to see, does it work? Does it work? It is not working. On click, we want to run this mobile menu. Let's go down here. Just double check. Mobile menu, nav menu, menu btn. Oh, there we go. We forgot a period right there. That's it. Now, let's see if it works. Hey, there we go. That's what we want right there, you guys. So now that we have our JavaScript done for our menu button, let's move on to the next section here. And the next section we're going to do is the listing section here. So we're going to have a 4-column layout, then we're going to shrink down to 3, and then again down to 2. So for our listings here, it's going to go up to our HTML file. And let's add some notes right here. So we're going to add some notes here for our listings. And I'm going to say, oh, there we go. Say listings. Add my ending. Listings end. There we go. Boom. Make it nice. And for our listings, we're going to have a div. So I'm going to use my shorthand here. Listings, just like that. Perfect. And now inside our listings, we're going to have cards, right? And I'm just going to call them a property card, just like that. And for our property card, I'm going to say div with the class name of card, like that. And in here, we're going to have an image. And I'm just going to put a little slash in there. And for our image, I'm just going to be grabbing things from Unsplash. So let's go to unsplash.com here. I'm going to open this up. And what we can say here, let's type in something like that, mansion. Now, the first ones are ads here, but what we can do, I'm just going to right click on this and say copy image address. And what that's going to do is just copy the URL for that image. So what I can do is paste it in there, like so. I'm going to go ahead and save that so it formats. And it should appear on our screen. Now, it's not styled, and it looks, it's kind of crazy, but that's what we need to do right there. So after our image, okay, we're going to create another div. No class name there, but on this div, another one here, we're going to say card title, just like that, okay? And inside our card title, we're going to have H4, and I'm just going to say, just put some dummy data in here, city, state, just like that, and p tag, I'm going to say 5.0. This is going to be our stars here, 5.0. And for our icon, we're going to put a font awesome icon in here, and I'm just going to type it out, but it's going to be I class, and it's going to be FA solid FA dash star, just like that. And let's see, and FA solid FA star doesn't look to be loading quickly there. Let's go ahead and go to font awesome. Sometimes it does this, you guys. Let's see here, star, that's the one I'm using. I'm just going to paste it in there. Maybe I made a little typo or something. Oh, there you go. I think I just made a little typo. Sorry about that. So that is what we want. Perfect. Now go ahead and below this div right here, below the card title div, we're going to have another p tag here. And I'm just going to say hosted by Realty Group LLC. Perfect. There we go. And I'm going to put this a span, okay, because I want this to be gray. So I'm going to say span.gray, just like that. And I'm actually just going to copy this and put it right in there. Perfect. And let's just copy this down. If you select this line here, and again, I'm going to have the control alt, there we go, or sorry, shift alt down right there. And then instead of this, I'm just going to replace that with, I'm going to say June 1 through 7, just like that. And this is all just dummy data. Ideally, you'd be pulling this from an API or from some sort of database or something like that. I'm going to say 7:49 at night. There we go. Perfect. Now let's just add this gray in there. So this gray, we just come up here at the top somewhere. And for this gray, I'm going to say, what's another color gray? Let's say, whoops. That's going to be way too light, yeah. We'll say, again, we'll just leave it at that. Perfect. That looks good. Or what do I use on this one? Let's have a look. We can inspect. This is a very important tool to learn how to use the Google Chrome developer tools. So 6D, 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 just like that. So let's just change that to 6D, 6D, 6D. There you go. Boom. Perfect. Everything looks great right there. And that's it for our card. So let's go ahead and give that, give this thing some styles here. Okay. So go over to our style sheet here, and let's put this down here in sort bar. We'll say listings and listings ending. And in here, we're going to grab our listings, right? And we want this to display as grid. But first, let's give some margin, 1 rem on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. And then we want to display grid template columns. We're going to use 4 columns. So we're going to use that repeat for 1 fraction because they're all the same column here. And then gap, I'm just going to say 1 rem. There we go. Now I'm just going to make sure, call this listing. Cool, perfect. Now, also what we want to say here, let's grab the card selector next. So say listings card, and we'll say max width of 300 pixels. There we go. And we'll say width 100%. Font size, I'm gonna say 0.9 rem. There we go. So scroll down some so we can see here. So 0.9 rem. Then let's grab our card title. Card title. So say card dash title. And we want that to display as flex, and we're going to do justify space between. So it kind of gets shoved to the opposite end of the screen there. And we're going to come back and style this image there. So don't worry about that. We're going to get to that here in just a second. I'm going to knock that out right now. So listings, and what we're going to say is that we're going to say card, doesn't really matter. There, listings img, and we'll say width 100%, height 200 pixels. There we go. Object fit, and this is really important, object fit cover. And what that's going to do is just maintain the aspect ratio. If these are tall images or wide images, kind of if they're portraits or landscape. So that's what's going to maintain the aspect ratio. And we'll say border radius 15 pixels. There we go. Nice little curved edge around that. In fact, I'm just going to throw this down here. I want all the images in here to say border radius 15 pixels. There we go. And that way we can just delete that, kind of save some. There we go. Perfect. Now, anything else? We're going to give a little bit of padding down here. So on these p tags, we just want a little bit of padding in between there. So I'm going to say listings p, and we'll say padding bottom 4 pixels. And that should be good. All right, so that looks good right there. Let's just go ahead and have a look. And I'm going to paste in, whoops, looks like this one made it outside of our container. That's okay. Let's go in here and should be, Let's see if I select this. Okay, this is our container div. Don't know how that got away from me. But what I'm going to do is hold the Alt button down, Option button if you're on a Mac. So what we can do is just kind of slide this down. And we're just going to put that at the end. And I'm going to add a little note. And this is a prime example why I like to add notes. There we go. So for our listings here, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and copy over, paste in these other ones, just so I don't have to sit here and type it all out for you guys. But that's what we need to do. We're not adding any extra code. I didn't add anything extra. It's still just a 4-column layout here, and no media queries have been added. So as you can see, shrink down, everything looks ugly. So let's go ahead and fix that. And for our styles, like I said, we're starting off with 4 columns. Then as we shrink down to our first breakpoint of 940 pixels here, we want to hit the was our 940 here on our, as we shrink down, we want to hit a 3-column layout. So let's go ahead and put that in right here. Put that just below the mobile here. What we're going to grab is listings, and we're going to say grid template columns, and we'll do the same. Repeat 3 1 FR, just like that. And gap is the same. That looks good. Make sure we're using gap. We use gap 1 rem. Perfect. And then as we get down a little bit lower to the 680 pixel, we're going to drop that down again to the 2-column. So listings, we'll say grid template columns, repeat 2 1 FR. And that's all we need to do. So as you can see, boom, there we go. And you see the pixels at the top right of the screen. 6, we're right around, dang it, right around 600 almost, and we get up past 680, boom, it jumps to 3. Then we get past the 940 coming up here, it's going to jump over to the 4-column layout. Perfect. When we open this up, that is looking good. You guys, by the way, smash the like button if you feel like you're getting some value out of this. Like I said, if you understand this basic CSS Flexbox and grid, then this is all you need to know to start earning money as a developer. And like I said, I'll put out another video kind of explaining more in detail. So what we're going to do next here, is kind of like this featured section right here. And this is really cool, really good to know, brush up on your grid skills here. So I'm going to drop that down, and we're going to do that one right now. So let's go to our HTML. We're going to go to the bottom here, and this time we're going to stay inside of our container. Okay, that'd be a good idea. And so for this class, I'm going to create a div called featured, just like that. Perfect. Now ends here, we're going to have we're going to use, I think we're using 5 here. If we can have a look, if we open this up so I can show you again. So as you can see, 1, 2, and these are actually 3 right here. So there's a 5-column layout. This one here is just going to span across 3 columns and span across 2 rows. And basically we're doing the same thing down here, but reversing it. So if you were to line up single pictures all the way across, you would actually see 5 images all the way across. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. So let's go down here, and for our featured, okay, I'm going to have a div at the top, and I'm going to give this a class name of title. There we go. And in here, I'm going to say H1, just going to say featured, just like that. And then the next div, just below the title div, is going to be featured -wrapper div. There we go. And we're going to have a main here, and inside here, we're going to have image. And again, I'm just going to copy over an image tag that I am using. You can use whatever you'd like. And I just did the same thing from Unsplash. I went and copied the image address. There we go. And so that's all I did there, just copy down the image address, okay? And I'm actually going to do this a couple more times. So I'm going to copy this down. So I'm going to press the control button. And what we're going to have 5 of these, okay? So I'm going to copy this down 4 more times. 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. And I'm going to add in some different pictures. Let's go to Unsplash here, and I'm going to copy image address. I'm going to paste that in here. Whoops. There we go. And copy this one. There we go. And let's copy in this one. And when I'm done with these, you guys, I'm going to put a link to the code in GitHub. If you guys want to clone this, feel free. I'll put that in a link in the description below there. So, all right. So now we have all 5 images that we're going to be using. Now let's go ahead and style this thing. Okay. So let's go into our style.css, and we're going to start up here just outside of our media queries. Okay. And outside of our media queries, we're going to have our featured. Okay. So just below here, we'll say featured and featured end. There we go. So for our featured, like I said, it's going to be a 5-column layout. Okay. So featured. So we want to add a width of 100% and then padding 4 rem on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. And where we're going to do our grid is on the featured wrapper that we put in there. So that's what we need right there. And then, so our featured title, there we go. I want to say padding 1 rem on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. And then for our featured H1, I'm going to give a border bottom. We're going to use that red color again, 4 pixels, solid, and then we're going to use that red, which was F. There we go, perfect. And display inline, because I only want this to go the length of the text there. Okay, so for our wrapper here, this is our featured wrapper. This is where we're going to claim our grids here. Okay, so in here we'll say featured wrapper, just like that. And I'm going to say display grid. And then what we're going to have here, we're going to actually add in some, let's add in some CSS variables. This is a good thing to know, especially if you're going to be doing some freelancing here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll do that just above here. And you can add in global variables up here at the top, or really they'll be accessible anywhere. But I'm just going to list them in here to kind of keep things nice and organized. So I'm going to list a gap. Okay. And for this gap, the way you do a variable is 2 dashes. So dash dash gap, and I'm just going to say 1 rem. Okay. And we're going to be able to, this is going to make it real easy when we do our media queries. And here I'm just going to say num calls, just like that, 5. Okay. And then row height, and this way we can change the height of the rows, we can change the gap, and we can change the number of columns real easily. I'm going to leave a little space here. You don't have to, but just for the sake of being easy to read. So here we're displaying as grid, right? And so for our grid template columns, instead of using the 5 columns, the repeat 5, what we can do, we can say repeat and then open up here, and we can just use the variable, right? So I'm going to say var, then open up your parentheses there, and we just say num calls right there because we want the num calls 5. And this is the exact same thing as saying 5 there, okay? We just need to repeat 1 fr, just like that. We're going to do the same thing for the rows. So grid auto rows. I'm just going to say var dash dash row height, just like that. And for our gap, we're going to do the same thing, var dash dash gap. And now for our media queries, it's going to be real easy for us to change them all up. Okay. So perfect. Now we can have, you can see we're having our grid columns. We still need to do some styling here though, but that's what we want so far. And so let's target our images next. Okay. So for our images, we'll say featured img, because all the images in here are going to have the same properties. Width of 100%, height 100%, and then remember the object fit, we're going to put it to cover so we can maintain our aspect ratios. Perfect. And see, you can notice all our aspect ratios look the same, no matter if these are landscape style pictures or portrait style pictures. So that looks good. For this first image, our primary image here, we want that to span across 3 columns, right? And 2 rows. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And we're going to do that. We're going to grab the featured main, because we gave this a class name of main for that first picture. Oh, we should just be that first picture. Sorry, I should have caught this earlier, you guys. Let's go ahead and delete these other class names, because we don't want any. We only want the first one to have the class name of main, because all the other ones we're going to leave. We don't need to do anything to them. So, in here, what we're going to say is grid column, and we just want to say span 3. And what that's going to do is drag it across 3 columns here. And then the same thing for grid row, we're just going to say span 2. So now it's going to take up 2 rows, and everything looks good like that. So, whoops, where'd we go? And we're going to come back and do our, I lost my spot here. We're going to come back here and do some media queries. But if we open this up, that looks perfect, just like that. So that's what we want, you guys. That looks good right there. And I'm just going to shrink that down. So we're going to add in just a few things here for our media queries. Let's go ahead and do our media queries for the 940 pixels. I don't think we're going to need anything except for just for the 680 pixels, we're going to add our media queries here. So we'll say featured and then main. And all we want to do is we want it to take up 2 instead of 3. Okay. And that way, let's go ahead and change that here. So what we can say is grid column span 2. Okay. But we need to add in our wrapper here as well. So let's do that. And this is why we did the variables. It's going to make it so much easier to edit here. So wrapper, all we have to say is just change the gap. Or I think we're using the same gap, 1 rem. But here are the num calls. What we can say is 2. And that's all we need to change. And just to be clear here, you guys, when we go into the right here, all we're changing are the variables, just like right there. So that's all we need to do, and that's it. So, and then remember, we already changed this here, span to 2. I know I kind of did that out of order. So if I comment that out, you can see that's spanning across 2 there, but we just need to change that. So perfect. That's all we need, you guys. That looks good. I think that looks really great. Now for the second little featured section, I think I called it like a popular section. Doesn't really matter. But basically, we're just going to copy that down. So let's go ahead and for this featured section there, what I'm going to do is just copy that down completely, just like that. And what I'm going to say here, we'll just change this title, just the H1, leave the title and the class names all the same, because we're not going to change any of those. But for our main, we are just going to drop this down. So just delete the main on the first image, and I'm going to put it on the third image. And this goes into the div, not the actual image element itself, not the HTML image element. So boom, just like that. And let's scroll down. I think that looks pretty good. So let's open that up. We might change that. So that's all we need to do to change that. And just so you understand, the reason why we put it on the third element is because it's the third image here, but we still have the span 3 on the columns and the span 2 on the rows. And that's why that works right there. So if we drop this down, I just want to make sure we keep it the same. Let's get past our breakpoint here. So perfect. That looks really, really great, you guys. Let's go ahead and move on to our footer, and we're going to add in some smooth scrolling as well. So it's going to be really, really awesome. So let's go to our footer here. And again, make sure we're inside our container here. So for our footer, there we go. Let's do a div with the class name of footer, just like that. Then we're going to have an unordered list with left menu, just like that. We're going to have an li that says air travel, kind of our name here. I'm going to copy that down. This one is going to say privacy, and then we'll have like a terms here and destinations, just like that. Perfect. Then under this, let's make a right menu here. So right menu, perfect. And in here we'll have a list item with one that says support. Copy that down, and this one you can just say contact or something like that. So let's go ahead and scroll, and that looks good right there. Perfect. We're going to add in our media queries here. So go ahead and let's go back over to our styles, and we need to be outside of our media queries here. Featured end. So let's do footer. There we go. And for our footer, it's real easy. We're just gonna have that space between. Like I said, this one's gonna be display as flex. So let's grab our footer and want to say display, flex, justify content. I'm going to say space, not around, but we want space between, just like that. And then I'm going to give a little bit of styles. Border, top, 1 pixel, kind of like the other ones we're doing, kind of maintaining that look. So we have a nice little faint line there. You can kind of barely see it. Then I want to add a little bit of padding, so it's a little bit of space above there. So I'm just going to say padding, 1 rem on the top and bottom, and then 0 on the left and right. So it should give a little bit of space. Perfect. So next I'm going to target the left and right menus, and I'm going to target those together. So I'm going to say footer, and then we want the left, whoops, it needs to be period, left menu. And then also if you put a comma here, it kind of lumps it all together. So right menu, just like that. And then I want both of these to be displayed as flex. And this is kind of just CSS best practice, you guys. We don't want to say on 2 separate lines, footer, left menu flex, and then do another line, footer, right menu flex. It's always best if you can condense it down. Just kind of like the dry principle, right? Do not repeat yourself with code, right? So we want to write as little as code as possible. So this footer, and then we'll say a left menu li, and what we'll say here, we'll say padding right 1 rem, and then I'm just going to copy this down here, and this one's going to be for right menu, and this one's going to be padding left. So there we go, perfect. Now we are going to need just a little bit of media queries in here to have everything display properly for our footer. But I think this looks fine. But on the 680 pixel breakpoint, we're going to have to make a little bit of changes in there. So all right, so for our footer in here, I want to make sure this is still on the screen. I know, there we go. So footer, and then what we want to have here, I'm just going to do this left menu, and then also the right menu, just like that. And flex direction, we want this to be a column here. There we go. Yeah, there we go, perfect. So I think that looks okay for now. Let's go ahead. I want to add in some smooth scrolling, okay? And which this is a perfect spot to be, because I want to add this little chevron arrow just like that at the very bottom. And so let's go back into our HTML file, and I'm going to put that just above our footer here. I'm going to say scroll to top, just like that. So in here, let's create a div, and I'm going to give it a class name of center, okay? And in here, we're going to have an A tag, and the href is going to be top, and we're going to come back and define that here in a minute. Now, for our I tag, we're going to say I class, and it's going to be, or sorry, FA dash solid, there we go, but it needs a little more in there, FA chevron dash up, make sure we get that there. Perfect. So that is what we want right there, you guys. Perfect. Now let's do some styling in there. We're gonna add in just a little bit of styling, because we want this to be displayed as flex, the center here. So we want this chevron icon to display right in the middle of the screen. So let's go outside of our media queries here, and so center, just want to display flex just like that, and then the center, a margin auto, and font size I want to say 2 rem, just like that. Perfect. So now it's beefed up a little bit. Now scrolls to the top there, but that's not a scroll to the top, that's to jump to the page, and all it did really was refresh the page. It's not fixed anything yet. So what we need to do is we want to add in some IDs to our elements here. So remember we said that was to the top of the screen, and we can scroll to sections if we use the number sign there. So that's why we put the number sign on the top. And let's go up here to top here, and I'm just going to put this wherever you want to scroll to. For in this case, I'm going to use this top bar. So what I'm going to say, I'm just going to give it an ID. ID of top, just like that. Now, also we're going to use scroll behavior, right? So we want everything to be smooth. So all we have to do is here go in. I'm going to put this somewhere at the top. Doesn't really matter where. I'll put it right here, and I'll just say HTML scroll behavior, and we want it to be smooth, just like that. So let's go ahead and see how this works. So let's just scroll down to the bottom. When we click this, it should slide us up to the top. Perfect, just like that, you guys. Now I want to add to these listings and popular so we can scroll down to there as well, because right now it just refreshes the screen. So let's go in here and nav link for listings here. Okay, so we'll say we don't really need to do anything for listings because we're right there, but that's okay. So for this one, we'll say this one's going to go to featured. The next one's going to be popular. There we go. Popular. Now let's go down to our listings, and we can give this an ID here. I keep doing that. Listings. And where's our featured? Get past our property cards here. And then for our featured, we can just add in an ID right here. And this is going to be featured. And then once more for our second featured here. But we're just going to call this popular. So it doesn't really matter what we call it. Now let's go into, let's see if this works. So it should work. Now if we click on listings, you can see it only scrolls us a couple inches there. But featured, you can see a nice scroll down to the featured. And let's test out the popular one. Boom, there we go, perfect. And I want to try this out on mobile as well. So if we open that, boom, it scrolls down. But this is a problem because our menu's not closing whenever we scroll. And that's not very... that's not very user friendly. So all we need to do here is we need to go back into our, we're going to need to go back into our JavaScript here. And what we need to do is just add like a little close menu function. So what we can say here is just another arrow function. So const, I'm going to call this close menu, just like that. Arrow function. And in here, I'm going to say nav menu, okay. So nav menu dot class list toggle, just like above, active. Okay. Now where we want to put this is on our actual elements. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. It gets formatted nice and neat. So for our elements, or for our links, where are they at? Here we are. So whenever we click on a link, we want to run the close menu function. Okay, so I'm just going to click right here. And what I'm actually going to do, instead of typing it out at 3 places, we can actually save a little bit of time. So if you just click on the Alt button, or if you're on a Mac, it's going to be the Option button. You can see now we have cursor in multiple spots. So we can actually type multiple things at the same time. So, and what we want to add is an on click. And on click, what we want to do is just run that close menu function. So close menu, just like that. Now let's go ahead and save that, and let's see if it works. So whenever we click on this, it should close our menu and scroll us down. There you go. Perfect. I'm going to close that and shoot up to the top of the menu. There we go. There we have it, you guys. A nice little travel booking website built in HTML and CSS and a little bit of JavaScript, you guys. So I hope you liked it. Smash the like button if you did. Subscribe to the channel. Like I said, most of my content is centered around React.js, but I really wanted to make this video to kind of reinforce some Flexbox and CSS grid properties, because I believe if you know how to do stuff like what we just did in this video, then I promise you can start making money as a front-end web developer. You're probably not going to get hired to go work somewhere, but you can very, very easily niche down and make 15, 20, 30, even $40 an hour creating these small projects. So I hope you liked the video, guys. Smash the like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.